Hello there, my name is Hido and welcome to the Pantheon, where we're getting a little bit frostbitten at the moment. You know, it's quite cold outside because, well, there's an ice age going on. And Egon, God of Death, is living through it. He's a 3-mana 6/6, which is a pretty hefty stat line really, and he has Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile 2 cards from your graveyard. If you can't, sacrifice him and draw a card. Okay, quite cool. A bit of self-exile, so we're not really going to be playing around with reanimating. But the drawing the cards, that's nice. But the main thing I'm interested in, 3-mana, 6/6. That's a pretty hefty stat line there. On his backside, we have Throne of Death. 1 black for a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. And then pay 3, tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard, draw a card. So, for the majority of this deck, we're really going to be concentrating on Egon. Throne of Death, I don't really see that as a build around. And if you're playing it, you're really stuck with it. In black, there's not too many ways to sacrifice permanents, so getting just an artifact back to your command zone or into your graveyard so you can get your commander back is pretty tricky. So, for the most part, we're going to be looking at the big Egon man. So, that's the deck. Let's have a look at it. But first, if you enjoy these videos, please do subscribe, like, and comment. Make me feel really nice and happy inside. And I just like it. And you get to see lots more of videos like this. As eventually I do want to do a video like this for every single legendary creature ever printed, which is quite the undertaking. Without further ado, let's have a look at number 5. And then at number 5, we've got Dark Blast. 1 black for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. But the main reason we're interested in this is Dredge 3. So if you would draw a card, instead you may put exactly 3 cards from the top of your library into your graveyard. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Otherwise, draw a card. So if we've got this in our graveyard, we can replace each one of our draws with the milling of 3, and then Egon can exile 2 of those cards. Well, obviously you need to be a turn ahead of it because the upkeep trigger for Egon will happen, then we draw. So there needs to be a couple of cards in the graveyard to start with. But with this, we can keep Egon on the field, keep swinging in for massive damage. And -1/-1 to a target creature can be quite effective, you know. It's not, well, anything with 1 power we can just kill outright. And then we can weaken something so Egon can kill it if he's attacking in. To go along with this, we've got a couple of other dredgy sort of cards. Necroplasm, 3 mana for a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on Necroplasm. At the beginning of your end step, destroy each creature with a converted mana cost equal to the number of 1/1 counters on Necroplasm. And then Dredge 2. So Dredge 2, you just put mill 2. Perfect for Egon because then he's got some food to eat. But we don't want this to get 3 counters on, or else it's going to blow up our Egon. But if that does happen, it does blow up itself, so you can reset the whole cycle. So some kind of sack outlet after we've got 3 counters on it. We can just keep blowing up like all the little soul rings and things like that. Really nice. Stinkweed Imp, absolute classic. 3 mana for a 1/2 with flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So Death Touch, basically. And then Dredge 5, so giving us a lot of food for good little Egon. Then Golgari Thug, 2 mana for a 1/1. When it dies, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. And then Dredge 4. So it sets up our draws. Really, really good. These sort of big dredges, you don't have to keep skipping your draw step like Dark Blast does, but getting them into the graveyard is a bit more tricky. To go along with it, here's a couple of other self-millers. Mesmeric Orb, 2 mana for an artifact. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. So this works with lands, so all of our lands untapping at the beginning of turn is going to mill us a ton, and then we've got lots of food for Egon. But it can also take our opponents out, and people hate getting milled. They absolutely despise it. So even if it's not that effective, you're probably going to annoy people, which always feels good. Then we have Sewer Nemesis, 4 mana for a horror, which is a star. As it enters the battlefield, choose a player. So in this instance, with this card, we're generally going to be choosing ourselves because its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in the chosen player's graveyard. And whenever a chosen player casts a card, that player puts the top card of his or her library into their graveyard. So every time we play something, we're going to be milling, giving us food for Egon, and it's going to give us a big threat if we just have an absolutely massive graveyard. Really nice card. And then finally, Stitcher's Supplier, 1 black for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield or dies, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. So we're doing all this milling, you know, yes, Egon's going to be exiling a couple of cards from it, but what cards do we want in the graveyard? Because there are a couple, we're going to be getting them in there and then we can use them. In at number 4, we have Extractor Demon. 6 mana for a 5/5 with flying, and it's a demon. Whenever another creature leaves the battlefield, you may have target player put the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. So a nice little bit of self-mill, so we can target ourselves with that ability whenever something leaves. And it has Unearth for 3. So pay 3, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield, it gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. Unearth only as a sorcery. So we've milled it, and then we can use it straight away, get in for 5 damage flying. We can finish off some opponents with it, because Egon's going to be hopefully smashing him for a ton of damage, and then this could possibly fly over and finish the job. To go along with it, Corpse Connoisseur, 5 mana for a 3/3. It's got Unearth for 4 mana. But when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card, put that card into your graveyard. If you do, shuffle your library. So again, a nice use of the graveyard. We're going to be wanting to mill this over, and then we can unearth it and get a bit more value. Find another creature that we can then bring back. Really good. Woe Strider, 3 mana for a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 white goat creature token. I love a goat. Who doesn't? Delicious, by the way. Escape, sacrifice another creature, scry 1, and then it has Escape for 5 mana, and exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. So we are going to be filling our graveyard a lot, but this could take away from Egon being able to, you know, keep himself around. So if that does happen, well, at least we draw a card off Egon dying. And when it escapes, it gets 2 1/1 counters on it. And you can escape over and over and over again as long as you have enough cards in exile, but hopefully in this deck you will do. Then we've got First Sphere Gargantua. 6 mana for a 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So it replaces itself, which is pretty good. But the fact you can unearth it means that from the graveyard, you're getting a bit of card advantage. We've milled over it and then we're drawing a card from it. Really, really good. Then Undead Gladiator. It has cycling. I had to include this. 3 mana for a 3/1. Pay a colorless, a generic, and a black, discard a card. Return Undead Gladiator from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only during your upkeep. And then cycling, so you can discard this card and draw a card. So if this is in the graveyard, we can get anything we want into the graveyard using this. So, you know, if we have a nice reanimation spell, we can pitch a big massive creature to this, get it back, cycle for a bit of card advantage, and then reanimate later. Really, really powerful. And if we're milling it over, we can get a nice bit of value from it. Then Dread Return, absolute classic. 4 mana for a sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Nice reanimation. Okay, 4 mana, bit expensive. But it has flashback. Sacrifice 3 creatures. You may cast this card from your graveyard for flashback cost, then exile it. Really, really powerful. Can come out of nowhere and just get your big massive threat back on the board. Then Chainer's Edict. 2 mana for a sorcery. Target player sacrifices a creature. Flashback for 7 mana. Incredibly expensive, but if you need that removal spell in a pinch, you've got it in the graveyard. Oh, I've disappeared for a second. And now we're in at number 3. And at number 3, we've got Glistening Oil. 2 mana for an aura enchantment. Enchanted creature has Infect. At the beginning of the upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on enchanted creature. When Glistening Oil is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So, Egon is a massive 3 mana 6/6. So, all that takes is 2 swings, and if he has Infect, we've killed an opponent. So, I'd like to build this deck, you know, with a sort of Infect twist on it. You know, the black is quite strong in Infect. Of course, it has Skithiryx, which is going to be coming up. But there are a lot of these sort of cards where it targets and we can give a creature that doesn't usually have Infect. Glistening Oil, as well as Tainted Strike. 1 mana for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Infect until end of turn. Really, really powerful. And as in the future sort of numbers here, we're going to see a couple of cards that can boost Commander's power and let him get through for a bit of damage. So Tainted Strike, comes in 7 power. If we buffed our commander a bit more, we're going to be killing someone. Then Grafted Exoskeleton, 4 mana for equipment. A quick creature gets +2/+2 and has Infect. Whenever Grafted Exoskeleton becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. Well, oh dear, but hopefully we're going to be getting him for tons of Infect damage with our commander. With this on, it's 8, and then we just need to buff him a little bit more, and we've got lethal on someone. Then we've got Pheresis, 2 mana for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature has Infect. Nice and simple. It's like Glistening Oil, but just not as good. Although Glistening Oil, if it stays around, it does make our creature smaller and smaller and smaller. To go along with it, a couple of other good Infect creatures here. Hand of the Praetors, 4 mana for a 3/2 with Infect. Other creatures you control with Infect get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So this can help finish someone off. Say we've smashed him for 6 with our commander. We can proliferate a little bit and use this to keep casting spells and hopefully get people out of the game. Then Phyrexian Crusader, 3 mana 2/2 with First Strike, protection from red and white, and Infect. This can just get through blockers and just chip away with a good bit of Infect damage. Really, really nice. Then finally, probably the better mono black Infect commander, Skithiryx the Blight Dragon. 5 mana for a 4/4 with flying and Infect. And he can gain haste until end of turn for a single black, then can regenerate him for a 2 black, which means you get to regeneration shield. If he would die, you tap him instead, and then he survives. Really, really good. Which brings me on to number 2. And then at number 2, we've got Sword of Vengeance. 3 mana for an artifact equipment. A quick creature gets +2/+2, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. Equipped for 3 mana. So the main thing we're looking at here is the First Strike and Trample. So our commander has Death Touch. So with Trample, you always have to assign lethal damage to the blocking creature. So if our creature has Trample and Death Touch, 1 damage is lethal damage. So regardless of how big something is, say a 40/40 is in front of our massive commander. We just have to assign 1 damage to that 40/40, and then the rest will trample through. But if this has First Strike as well, so we've got First Strike, Trample, and Death Touch, First Strike happens before normal damage, so we'd assign that 1 damage, the creature would die, and then everything else tramples over, which is really, really cool. Essentially makes our commander unstoppable in combat. And then, of course, Vigilance and Haste, it does everything we want our commander to do. We're going to be getting in for tons of damage, and it makes him into an 8/6. Very, very powerful. I really, really like the card. To go along with this, here's a couple of other really cool equipments. Shadow Spear, 1 mana for equipment. A quick creature gets +1/+1 and has Trample and Lifelink. So there you go. Trample is what we're looking for. And Lifelink can help gain us back a bit of life that we may have lost. Pay 1, permanent your opponent's control, lose hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. That can be very powerful if you're playing against things like Ulamog or Blightsteel Colossus. And then equip for 2 mana. So it comes down early and we can equip it and just start swinging out, which is nice. Then Loxodon Warhammer, 3 mana for an equipment with quick cost of 3. Quick creature gets +3/+0 and has Trample and Lifelink. So very similar to Shadow Spear, but we're going to be having a 9/6 smashing in. Really, really good. And then this one's a slightly different take on it. Dragon Throne of Tarkir. 4 mana for an equipment. Quick creature has Defender. Not great in our aggro commander, but you can pay 2 and tap him. Other creature you control get Trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. So because our commander is so big and so cheap, if you have a large token army, you could equip this, give everything +6/+6 and Trample, and then just smash in with all of your tokens, which is quite cool. Which brings me on to number 1. It's another equipment, and it's the Death Touch that really does it with this card. It's fantastic with it. Thornbite Staff. 2 mana for a Shaman equipment. Quick creature has, pay 2, tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. And whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. Whenever a Shaman comes into play, you can attach Thornbite Staff to it. And a quick cost of 4. So, why is this good? Well, because of Death Touch. That 1 damage is now lethal damage. It'll kill the creature. We untap our commander, pay 2 again, tap him, and we can just ping away at everything and just wipe the board. And while we're killing everything, why don't we take advantage of that? Sir Conrad the Grim is a 5 mana 5/4. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves the graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Compared to each player mills a card. So this card does absolutely everything the deck wants to do. We can mill cards to keep our commander around. If our commander's exiling creature cards from our graveyard, we're going to be pinging. And if our commander's pinging things to kill them, we're going to be pinging people because creatures are dying. It just does absolutely everything the deck wants. And it's a really great include. And the fact that it's an uncommon is just astonishing to me. Which brings me to Limdol the Necromancer. 7 mana for a 4/4 human wizard. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from play, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, return the card to play under your control. If it's a creature, it's a zombie in addition to its other creature types. And then we can regenerate target zombie. So we can make a big army using this if we keep killing our opponent's creatures, bringing them back, and then we can even regenerate our army so our opponents can't get them back. Really, really nice. And then Harvester of Souls, 6 mana for a 5/5 with Death Touch. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. So this works excellent with Thornbite Staff because it has Death Touch itself, so this can do the pinging. And we're going to be drawing cards for every single time a creature dies, which is just good, clean value, isn't it? And those are my top 5 cards for Egon. I wish there was a bit more play between the Throne and Egon, but I think he's a cool commander nonetheless. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this, please subscribe and, do the likes and all that sort of stuff. I'll see you soon. I'm going to make lots more videos like this. Bye.